routing and logic that will by default will provide the listing logic of particular component, and we have an option to render the form itself with this create new button. So now we're going to provide the listing logic, which will list the data of particular table. This is the default listing logic here when the action it's not matched, and the page ID itself it's numeric, and also we are going to provide one more condition, page ID to be part of the table. So like this one. Right. So now I think we will need the data that the columns data which is provided here. So whatever we are in this case or this case, the columns is something that we need. So I'm not sure we need these built relationships, but for sure we need the columns. So in order to provide the relationship between the selected component. So columns we are presented here out of the conditions. We always need it, or maybe not always, but at least when the page ID is specified. So maybe in this case it's good to have this one. Okay. Or we may have a default logic that if that will get if the page ID. So by default page ID is no. We have a case where the page ID is no. So in this case, when the page ID is not specified from the table, we'll provide maybe just the current or the first element of the table, and this is kind of the default component. And here in each case when the action is not specified, okay, we have this default behavior, which will be the listing logic. Okay. So what's happened now? Listing logic, user, create new, user component, create new. That's it. So now we have the columns that we need. So the default columns maybe will be, which is the default columns here. Alright, so the default columns, let's check which is the default component, current component. So we also should change that logic. Current component, exactly. So we need the current component, by the way. It will be the current tables. So this is the current components. It's by default the first element, the current element of the table array when the page ID is not specified. And we already have this current component, and we directly can use it here. Equals current component. Yes, exactly. So we have the default columns extracted, and here we can check which is the current default component. The home page is the city because it's the first in the list. If we choose service, we have service. If we choose create new, we have service component creation. So here is the place when we should provide our default listing logic. And let's check what we have in the columns variable. We have, for the city, for example, we have all the fields part of the city table. This is really important. And what we can see in the country, that we have the country ID, and it's actually part of the country table, and it's related through the so this is the city component, and it has relation with the city, the country ID have relation with the city table through the ID. So the country ID it's from the country table. What we don't know right now is actually we know what we need. We have the country table, we have the field, and we know that is actually the field used for the relationship, and we have also the parent key, which is the ID. So we are able to get what we need. Let's try it out. Let's try to generate a query. We can reuse that query. Can we use that query? Yes. Okay. So we can select everything from the current component, and let's check what we'll have in the, let's zoom it, get refs, fetch, oh, okay, error, yeah, oh, we missed a point, okay, and here is the result from the table, but it's not with the column name, but with the integer keys, but that is not important now because we use the fetch all method. And what we should change here is that ID. Actually, by the end user, ID2 will not provide information for the country, so we need the name of the country here. And in order to provide and join the tables here, we can do the following thing. So for each columns as column, the same as we do here, and let's use key column, okay, and in case of we're looking for the elements which have parent, which are relationship. So when the column parent it's not set, we don't care. But so we continue. but in any other case we do the following. For SQL, this is the way we can complete it, we can fill it. So it's equal to the inner, a new line, inner join, and we join the parent in the column parent. Yes, where on let's check again the columns data. Columns. Okay, so we need parent. It's in this case parent is the country what we need, and we use the name of the field on column name. Column name is equal to the column this one, parent key. Okay, and we should put an alias here, which will be the, for example, so this is the original table. This will be like here, the join key. Doesn't matter. We can do it like a relationship or parent. Let's say parent. Okay. So sp on table country ID is the same as the parent ID, and we have this generated SQL now, and what we select actually is not everything. Let's select everything to see what we have. Yes, we have the name of the country. And now we want to skip some of them. We don't need the relation, we don't need the ID, we don't need the country ID, and yeah. We have similar logic where Yeah, this on label, it was filtered. Everything that is not integer was provided here, so we can do the same logic for now here. So it's for each get. No, it's not for each. Row. And let's define the rows. So rows are equal to the following thing. We need all the fields here which are not integer, let's say, but maybe this will not be enough. But let's define this one and now dump the rows. Okay, country ID, name 2. So we have, I think we missed something. We missed the name of the city. Yeah, we have the list of rows. ID2, ID2, ID3. But it seems that they are different from what we extracted.